The Chinese are tough negotiators. We're tough, too. I believe that we have the makings of a deal. Ambassador Greer and myself will be speaking to President Trump today about whether we will be doing the roll by the August 12th deadline. There's still a few technical details to be worked out on the Chinese side. Between us, I'm confident that it will be done, but it's not 100% done.
Okay, so that's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent earlier this morning expressing confidence that a trade deal with China is within reach. Maria Bartiromo, anchor of Mornings with Maria on Fox Business and Sunday Morning Features on Fox News Channel, joins us now to break this all down. Okay, let's put this on the board here. The snapshot of our economy as of today and all these Trump wins. We've got the trade deals, the latest being the one with South Korea. Better than expected GDP numbers. The economy grew at 3% last quarter. Don't have this up on there, I don't think, but consumer spending is up. Better than expected. If tariffs are bringing in a lot of money. All I hear in my head are Democrats screaming recession, recession, recession. That's not happening.
No, it's not happening at all. In fact, everybody that I speak with, money managers, business managers, CEOs, they all say the same thing. America is back, and America is hot, and it has everything to do with President Trump's policies and everything to do with the expectations of where things are going. Look, very few people expected a 3% quarter that we just got in the GDP, and now you're seeing hundreds of billions of dollars come back invested in America because President Trump is doing these deals. He's doing tax deals, trade deals, peace deals, and it's working. You're seeing it. People are feeling better about things. And I think even skeptics of President Trump's policies in the past are coming around. Just the other day, you saw Ken Langone say, look, when you're wrong, I have to admit it. So I think that when you actually look at what he's doing, there was a whole message to, the plan, a message to the madness. And he's actually doing lots of deals. We'll see where China is. China has been tougher than the other countries. It's been a while, and they also have been a very bad actor on the global stage.
In that interview, Bessent sounded confident they were going to get a deal. That would be significant.
China needs the U.S. more than the U.S. needs China, but let's not forget, we do need China right now. We've got our supply chains in China. We still, rely on 90% of our underlying components for prescription drugs made in China. I'd like to know what the congressmen who were yelling Russia, 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 and Russia collusion were doing when this was actually in the formation process, when China was eating our lunch, when during this last 10 years that President Trump was being attacked by his political enemies, because that was a dereliction of duty.
On China, really quickly, if I can ask you, though, but we're obviously still watching what's going to happen with the Russia sanctions. How much, all of these trade deals, how much will that influence China and put pressure on them? And then also, if there are those secondary sanctions that go into place and that will impact China because they buy a ton of oil from Russia, how does that play a factor?
I think it is going to play a factor. I think it will influence them. Look, President Trump understands that China needs consensus. And what he's been doing is going around China and doing deals with lots of Asian nations. That's what he did in the Middle East against Iran. Remember his first trip to the Middle East? He met with the Saudis, UAE. He went to all, Qatar. He went to all of these regions and then went into Iran and knocked out their nuclear capabilities. So it's a similar fight here where you've got China being a bad actor. President Trump is going around China and doing all these other deals. So I think it will pressure China. And China needs the American consumer. That's what President Trump is counting on.
Talk about interest rates. He's been hitting the Fed chair really hard.
He really has.
Here it was yet again. Too late, Powell's done it again. He is too late and actually too angry, too stupid, and too political to have the job of Fed chair. He's costing our country trillions of dollars. In addition, one of the most incompetent or corrupt renovations of a building in the history of construction. Put another way, too late is a total loser, and our country is paying the price. So he's not letting up. They kept the rates where they are, but they had two dissenters on the Fed for the first time, I think, in 35 years.
Yeah, that's right. Since 1993. It tells you, well, first of all, Mickey Bowman was just put in place, and she is seen as a conservative. So she agrees with President Trump's policy. Christopher Waller is on a short list to be the next Fed chairman. I expected that those two would be dissenters. But what you have going on right now are a lot of people, even beyond the Fed board, a lot of people questioning what exactly is Chairman Powell's policy? What is his whole agenda here? Because Because he keeps saying he's going to wait for tariffs to cause inflation. It's not happening, Bill. Okay? Scott Bessent told me the other day when I had him on that already they have achieved $100 billion in revenue from tariffs, and they're going to $300 billion for the year. So he's bringing in all this revenue. It actually caused a budget surplus for the month of June, which nobody has seen since the last time President Trump was in the White House. So I think at some point you're going to see the Fed relent, and they're going to probably cut rates in September. But look, all this conversation about the Fed needs to be independent, and yes, I agree with that. The Federal Reserve needs to be independent, but it goes both ways. It's not just on the president to make sure things are independent. Why did Powell cut rates right before a presidential election? That's what I want to know. Did the economy really warrant a cut in interest rates right before a presidential election? So it goes both ways. Chairman Powell should not be political. A lot of people say he is. President Trump told me he thinks he has TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. I don't know.
That last move was in October prior to the big national.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you think September. And if it doesn't happen in September, and obviously there's a lot of people out there like myself that would like to refinance my mortgage, I would like those rates to come down. But if it doesn't happen, what is the downside? What happens to the economy?
Well, the president has been talking about the impact of the Fed's failure to cut rates, and he said that it costs the U.S. $335 or $350 billion for every point that the Fed is not cutting. And what he's talking about is the interest that we pay on the debt. Let's not forget that the higher the interest rates, the more money we have to pay to hold $37 trillion in debt. And that's where the president comes up with that $350 billion number. So, yes, if the Fed lowers interest rates and it ripples through other fixed income markets and takes rates down, then it will be an easier lift for the federal government to hold $36+ trillion in debt. And that's what the president's focused on. Fed Chairman Powell is saying, look, we have a mandate. Our mandate is employment and it's inflation. Well, doesn't holding the cost of debt impact growth and impact those two things as well? I would argue the Fed should be thinking about how much it costs. But then again, Congress never stops spending, so there's that.
That's true, too. Listen, the market's about the boom. The tech sector is going to go nuts today. What Meta and Microsoft reported yesterday after the close, those companies are doing really, really well.
Bill, we're in a melt-up.
Yeah, we're melt-up. Got it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.